Now, let's talk about this for a second. Let's just talk about some common mistakes that I see people make. Okay. Now, obviously, one of the most common mistakes that I see people make is they don't ever change their workout, right? They are always going into the gym. They're always doing the exact same thing, and they're doing the same machines. They're doing the same number of reps, and they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Okay. And their body's not getting anywhere. Okay. Well, it's because you need to change it. Your body is probably adapted to that thing. Now, I would say probably the most common mistake that I see happening right now is people changing their workout too often. Okay. And I'm going to blame P90X for this. Okay. So there's this word that is not a scientific word, but people have run with it like it's a scientific word. Muscle confusion, right? P90X is the person who, or the place that really kind of took it to that next level of getting people to say, oh, muscle confusion. And so, yes, muscle confusion is basically your body adapting to an exercise program. Okay. But they took it to an extreme. Okay. Now, with what they did, and what you see a lot of these, whether it's CrossFit, F45, Orange Theory, or whatever, they literally change the exercise program every single time that you come in, and you're doing something different every single time. Okay. And that is, they're like, oh, we're just trying to confuse the muscle so you get more results out of it. And the problem is your body, you never allow yourself to really get good at anything, because one day you're doing, this exercise for this number of reps. The next day you're doing a completely different exercise and doing that number of reps, and your body just isn't getting good at it, right? As you know, anytime you introduce a new exercise to your routine, you're probably pretty bad at it the first time, right? You're probably not very good. There's a little bit of a learning curve to understand how to get it done. And it usually might take a week or two for you to really feel, of practicing that particular exercise, for you to feel like, okay, now I've got it. And then once you feel like you've got the technique down, then it usually takes another 2 to 3 weeks before you really max out on the amount of weight that you can be doing on that exercise. So just that one exercise, it took you 4 or 5 weeks, just depending on your level and what exercise it is. But it took you anywhere between 4 or 5 weeks before you maxed out the amount of weight that you could possibly do. Okay. Now, if you're always going in and you're doing a different workout every single time that you lift weights, you're doing different exercises, different rep ranges, different everything, you're never allowing your body to ever get good at anything. And so you probably won't get any stronger. You probably won't develop any more endurance. You probably won't develop more muscle, because you're just changing it way too much too often. Now, that's a great thing if you're bored all the time and you don't, you get bored easily or whatever. That's great for that. But if you're working out because you want to see physical changes, then you can't just take the shotgun approach of just changing it every single time that you go in because you get bored. Okay. Focus on solving one problem at a time. Let's focus on first solving your physical issues. And then once we solve the physical issues, then maybe we can focus on solving the boredom issues, right? Now, if you just want to focus on solving the boredom issues and that's all that matters to you, then fantastic. That's your goal. But if you're changing your workout all the time and you're getting frustrated because you're not seeing physical changes, it's probably because you're changing it way too often, way too much. And I'll be honest with you, that is probably the biggest issue that I see going on right now with most people's workouts, is changing it way too often. If you're a client of mine, you know that I allow you to get really, really, really good at a particular exercise, particular routine, a particular rep range, right? And once you get really good at it and you've maxed it out, guess what? It's already time to change our next thing. So you're actually working on getting stronger, okay? You're working on building more endurance, or you're actually doing something. You're actually trying to work on. Imagine if every single day you went into work and you had a different job. Okay, think about that. You went into work every single day and you had a different job. Okay, could you ever really be good at all of those jobs if every single day you're doing a different job? I'm not saying that your day changes from here to here. I'm saying you literally, like, you go in one day, you're a mailman. The next day you go in, you're a teacher. The next day you go in and you're a woodworker, right? Like, it's just too much change. Okay, we need to do one thing for a while, get good at it, and then when our body adapts to it, we need to change it. So changing it too often is a really, really, really bad thing. Okay, we definitely don't want to change it way too often. Okay, one of the other mistakes that I see, and it just kind of goes again with changing it too often, is I see people just doing random rep ranges just for the sake of change, right? They just like, they don't even know, like, okay, well, today I did 5 reps and then tomorrow I'm going to do 30, right? Or, you know, I really want to tone, so I'm going to do more reps in lighter weight or whatever. And they're just changing the rep ranges just randomly, just for the sake of change, just for the sake of doing something. Okay. I see a lot of people, and I think I mentioned this already, I see a lot of people trying to get stronger, trying to build muscle, trying to get more endurance, trying to get more power, all at the same time, right? They say, okay, well, I want to get stronger. I want to have bigger muscles. I want to have more endurance, and I want to do it in this workout. Okay. And you can't do that. Okay. Again, all of those are completely different workouts. So let's go ahead and talk about that for a second, because this is super important for you to know. Okay. Now, in order for you to build muscle, okay, the idea, now I'm going to get nerdy for a second, so stay with me here. Okay. In order for you to build muscle, okay, in order for you to get to that point, there is a certain number of reps and sets and and all that good stuff. But physiologically, what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to damage as many muscle fibers as you possibly can. And you don't want to let them fully recover and rest, because the more that they don't recover fully, the more your body has to go out and recruit more muscle fibers, which means the more muscle you will damage, or the more muscle fibers you will damage. The more muscle fibers you damage, the more growth you will have. Okay. So let me just say that in plain English. When you're trying to build muscle, what you're trying to do is you're trying to damage as many muscle fibers as you possibly can. You do that with the amount of weight that you're lifting, and you do that with restricting the rest. Okay. I'll give you some quick stats. In order for your muscle to recover to about 90% full recovery, let's just say you do bicep curls. Okay. Just give you that. In order for it to recover to 90% of full recovery, you need to rest 2 minutes in between each set. Okay. In order for you to recover to 100%, you need about 5 minutes of recovery before that muscle is fully recovered, meaning that all the muscle fibers that you just worked have got the energy back in them again. Okay. And you can actually go use that. Okay. Now, if you don't allow your muscles to fully recover, right, where you use those muscle fibers again, if you don't allow your muscles to fully recover, they're going to go out and recruit more muscle fibers, because they need a lot of muscle fibers to lift the weight. And if you don't allow those muscles to fully recover, they will go out and recruit more muscle fibers. And so the way that you get bigger muscles is by damaging more muscle fibers. And the more muscle fibers you damage, the bigger your muscle will grow. Okay. So getting bigger, having bigger muscles is not about strength. It's not necessarily even about endurance. It has a little bit to do with both. Okay. But it's really about, at the end of the day, it's about how many muscle fibers you can actually damage in that particular workout. And I say damage in a positive way, right? Not in a bad way. Not like you're tearing your muscles and split them apart. Okay. So that is muscle building. Okay. Now, muscle strength is completely different. Muscle strength is all about how many muscle fibers your brain can actually recruit to fire at one time. Okay. Just because you're strong doesn't mean you're going to have big muscles. Okay. Go look at these Olympic weightlifters, right? Some of them are 135 pounds and they're lifting 3 and 4 times their body weight. Okay. 135 pounds. You look at them. Yeah. They're lean and they're shredded, but they don't have huge muscles, right? They don't have huge muscles. Why? Because they have focused on recruiting as many muscle fibers as they can to contract at one time. Okay. So imagine this like strength. Okay. So strength is this. I'm going to give you an analogy that'll tell you the difference between strength and muscle building. Okay. So imagine this. Imagine that you have a 300-pound table. I'm just going to make this up. You have a 300-pound table and you have 10 guys who are all standing around that table. Okay. And you are the foreman. You are telling them what to do. Okay. So you are the brain. Okay. And those guys around the table are the actual muscle fibers. Okay. And then the table is actually the weight that you're lifting. Okay. So I am strong if I, as the foreman, am able to get all 10 of those guys to lift at one time. Because if I can get all 10 of those guys to lift at one time, I am going to be strong. Okay. Now I might have my twin brother who is on the other side, and he may not be strong because he can only get 5 of those guys to lift up at one time. Okay. So strength is really your ability to recruit as many muscle fibers as you can at one time, to contract all at one time. And the more you can do that, the stronger you're going to be. Okay. Now that's strength. Okay. Muscle building, on the other hand, is completely different. Muscle building, like I said, is all about fatiguing the muscle fibers and recruiting as many as you can and not letting them fully recover. So for example, let's say we still have that table with those 10 guys around. Okay. Hypertrophy is like this. I say, hey, instead of a 300-pound table, let's say it's a 100-pound table. So now I don't need all 10 of those guys to lift. I just need 4 of those guys to lift. Okay. And it takes 5 minutes for them to fully recover. Remember, we use that stat. So let's say I say, okay, boom, 4 guys lift. So the 4 guys lift that table. There's 6 guys who aren't doing anything. They're just hanging out, eating their lunch, whatever, making fun of the guys that are lifting, right? So they're doing that stuff, right? So then those guys get tired. And then 60 seconds later, they're not fully recovered. Those guys that just lifted, they're not fully recovered. So I say, hey, we're going to lift this table again. But those guys are too tired to lift. So I have to go recruit 4 other guys that are standing around the table. Okay. So then I go and I let them lift. So now I have just recruited 8 guys to lift. And then 60 seconds later, I'm not letting them fully recover and I'm going to lift again. And now I have to go recruit 4 more guys to lift that table. And so hypertrophy, or building muscle, is all about how many guys I can get to tire out, and how many I can damage, and how many I can recruit to do this particular exercise. And so the more that I get tired, the more they grow back bigger and stronger during my recovery period. Okay. So I told you it's a little nerdy. Okay. So that is the big difference between strength and muscle building. They are 2 completely different goals. Okay.